and
Yeah.
still to this day. And it's a real privilege to me. I've just been in Sweden, as you know, last week, and I had a great opportunity to work basically with Indian players there. So it's brought me a lot, and so I don't know. You'll see. No one's phoned me yet, but we'll see.
What's your take on? Have you ever seen something like this in a test team in years that you lose three, four, five players? I mean, if you look at Cheteshwar Pujara, Rahane, and then Rohit, Ashwin, and Kohli, I don't think in recent times something like this has happened where a team loses a chunk, literally 50 to 60% of its team, test team that too, where it's very critical. I find that very challenging for this team. It's a really, really tough task that they're up to.
Yeah, Faisal, you spot on. I think it is. The one thing I'll always say is there's so much depth in Indian cricket. So let's not discount the fact that a lot of young players with experience in big matches will be coming in. Test cricket's a very different animal, as we know, and it really does challenge the fundamentals of your game. So I think and especially away from home, that'll always be a challenge. But I do remember, when was it, 2 years ago, a young Indian team beat Australia in Australia. It was an amazing result. That to watch it unfold. So I think sometimes it's very exciting. The most important thing is how patient are the Indian stakeholders going to be. That's going to be the biggest challenge, is how patient will they be, because every well, a proud cricketing nation like India, are they going to accept this rebuilding phase for a decent amount of time? Because I'm sure, you lose two, three, 4 games on the bounce, and everyone will be shouting and screaming what's going on, kind of thing. But every team goes through it. There is a rebuilding phase, and it's a great opportunity for some young guys, and um, it's a very exciting time in Indian cricket, to
Yeah.
be honest. But these phases don't come with pain, and it's how much pain the Indian cricket stakeholders are prepared to accept.
And it's probably the toughest time for Gautam Gambhir. Many similarities with you, opening batsman, young, and he also took over with very little coaching experience except for IPL teams. How do you view him, having played with him, having had him in your team? What do you make of Gautam Gambhir? Uh,
Well, I don't know Gotham the coach at all. Gotham the player I absolutely loved, and I think he's got a toughness to him that is very useful anyway. He's had success in IPL. I know that I remember when we made him. We split the one day team and the test team, and we actually made him the one day captain against New Zealand, before coming to
Mhm.
South Africa, and he did a fantastic job there. So strategically, I think he's really strong, and but he's got a personality, and he's got a style, and
Yeah.
the big thing is, does that personality and style connect with Indian players? That's really what it's going to be about, and um, I don't know enough um, to know how it's going, or how he's going with the players, but all I do know is that he's got incredible skill in the game of cricket. So my hope is that I'm thoroughly fond of Gotham, and I just hope that he's getting the support he needs, and that the players are starting to, if not already, kind of warm to him and understand how he wants to operate and whether he can add value to the team.
Right. Gary, let's speak a little bit about your IPL stints as coach. What did you see as a difference between coaching a national team and an IPL team or or a team in the leagues? What is the main difference?
I think the main difference is just how quickly you need to be moving, Faisal, and I found that quite challenging. I always think it takes time to build and form a team unless you've got some history there. Um, but I'll never forget, my first job was with Delhi, and I arrived at the auction, and we didn't have one player on our books. It was basically starting a brand new team, and I think it's always quite challenging moving from international coaching, where you kind of have a long period of time with players and you build these connections and you get to know and understand each other, then to suddenly be thrust into an IPL space where you've got like 7 weeks and you've got to move very quickly. I think also coaching is a lot more hands-on in IPL than it is in international format or international game. When I say hands-on, it's like you are potentially quite involved in the strategic outcome of the game in real time. I think in
Hmm.
international 50 over and test cricket, it's a slower process. You can debrief after games, you can debrief between sessions. But 2020 cricket goes very quickly. So that was a real challenge. And then obviously, as we've discussed already, trying to find that common cause amongst, 5 or 6 different cultures is not always that easy. So yeah, so I think it requires a different set of skills compared to international coaching. Um, um, I quite enjoyed the stint I had with Gujarat for 3 years, and I wasn't the head coach. I was an assistant under Ashish. Ashish was very specific around how he wanted to coach, but I was allowed
Hmm.
the opportunity just to connect with players and build relationships, and I really enjoyed that.
Right. Gary, how do you measure success as a coach just beyond wins and losses? What is that parameter that marks out a coach from being a good coach to a great coach?
Well, I think you'll always be measured by the win-lose column, and I think all coaches accept that. Um, but you'll probably find that most coaches don't measure themselves on that. I don't measure myself on how many World Cups I won and how many IPL trophies I won. I measure myself
Hmm.
um, on the journey of coaching. Am I getting better every year? Am I learning more? Am I finding out a new way to deal with conflict or deal with a difficult player? Am I finding a new skill to help a player in his acquisition of skills? Have I learned something from someone else that might help me talk to this player or become better in this situation? Have I learned something about communication, how to communicate better? Have I learned something about running a better meeting? Like I think that's how I judge myself. Am I improving every year to give the best of myself? That's my journey that I'm on. Um, the external journey is, how much do you win? But coaching is not like that. You're going to lose a lot. You're not always going to win. It's just that's sport, and I'm involved in sport because I love the unpredictability of the result. I think that there's never a guarantee that you're going to have the kind of success that we all wish we had. Every coach starts at the beginning of IPL and says we want to win the tournament this year. Only one wins. 9 don't
Right.
win, and 9 have to reflect on what they can do this time. So you're probably going to be more on the 9 out of the 10 than you are going to be the 1 out of the 10. And if you're the 1 out of the 10, great. And I know incredible success in T20 cricket. He'll take this one time and he'll go, okay, what do I need to do better next time? Because he knows that the other 9 are thinking of what they need to do better.
Right. Right. Uh, I wanted to check with you. Bob Woolmer was a big fan of technology and the way he introduced technology as a coach into cricket coaching. We are seeing now that with baseball, they've kind of taken away some of the statistics, and statisticians have been let off and laid off from the team. What is your style of coaching? Do you think that there's a lot of technology that's required when you're making plans and strategizing, emphasis on statistics and analysis, or you're more a coach who goes by intuition and by his own gut feeling, the way, you know, Brendan McKillum is advocating these days?
I would think most are a hybrid of that. Um, I don't think um, just analyzing the data and then building strategies around just the data um, can necessarily always be accurate, because every game's you can't take an average. Every game's a game on its own.
True.
So every game's got different variables, different conditions, different situations. Bowlers bowling differently to what they might have bowled on another day. I think you can use data to understand trends that might be helpful to build strategy. And in the end, you're using data to find competitive advantage. So I think the understanding of it, the use of it in the right way, can definitely aid success, but I don't think it can be the only thing to success. We're dealing with human beings. We're dealing with people that handle pressure differently, and there's no stat in the world that's going to tell you at the moment that a individual's playing in the IPL final and he's the same person mentally around how to bowl this next ball as he was in the first game of the IPL. It could be a very different human being between the first game of the IPL and the final, and the stats will tell you that it's the same human being. It's the same. He's going to spit out the same data, which I disagree with. So I do think that there's an element of intuition and feel and kind of understanding your people and understanding who can you turn to when the heat is really on. And I'm always interested in that, like building a team where I said to you earlier, our World Cup success in 2011 was based on the fact that I think we had 7 or 8 players that could, in a final, win the game. Now, that's what you're looking for in any high performance environment. You're looking for a group of players where you can throw the ball to different people and they can win the game. I'm not sure data can be overly accurate on that. But as I said, I think data, when used correctly, and I know a lot of coaches use it extensively, when used correctly, can help you help you understand the trends that exist, and then you can build a strategy around that.
Right. Just going back on the whole importance of mental conditioning. Can you break it down as a very simple thing? Because a lot of coaches talk and throw this word around that it's mental conditioning is very important for it. I mean, you were at a coaching camp recently in Sweden, and Naga from Anchor Sports was telling me that you emphasized a lot on mental conditioning and it's important from a young age. What is the whole emphasis and what is it like? If you could do a dummy's guide on it for me in a very brief thing, what exactly does it mean?
Yeah, I mean the understanding and the phrase mental conditioning sometimes triggers an emotion in people that we think, well, either you have it or you don't have it. It's like this concept: either he's got big match temperament or he hasn't. Or we watch Virat Kohli play and say he's got massive belief. We see something in an individual and then we put a name to it. And I think we need to be careful with that, because I think um, you know everyone can access their mental strength. Everyone. It's just how you're able to access it, because we kind of sit with this cognitive side of our decision making, and we've got the emotional side as well. And often emotion takes over, and then we can't think clearly. But when we think really clearly on the cognitive side, we can maybe control the emotions a little bit more. And I'm always fascinated to help players become really cognitive under pressure, so that they don't get done in by their emotions. Now emotions sometimes are really important. You see a bowler get really pumped up in his bowling because he feels he's got the better of a batsman, and we visibly see that emotion. We see a Virat Kohli get pumped up when he's batting, and we visibly see that emotion. So in those situations, they're really helpful. But I would say for the better part of the most of us who don't necessarily visibly show their emotions, it's how you can control the emotions and how you can become really cognitive in your performance behavior. What is the task at hand, rather than am I going to do well or not do well today? And really, when we can move into what is the task at hand, what I need to do absolutely now, move away from the results. If you can get players thinking really cognitively around the task at hand and the decisions that they need to make in that moment, I think that that's where mental toughness sits. So I almost think it's an intelligence rather than it's a the concept of a mental toughness, performance intelligence. It seems to me, and this is anecdotal, but it seems to me that your better players have greater performance intelligence, and they have built that up over time, over their journey and their experiences. But they just seem to handle themselves better because of that intelligence. They understand what to do in every situation. They understand their own games really well. And I think that can be quite exciting when a player is operating in that space. Now, it doesn't always happen. And I think I've had some moments in my playing career where, I had great performance intelligence, but then I had other times where I got hijacked emotionally, and I was playing with too much emotion and not enough performance intelligence, and I let the moment get the better of me, and it cost me my wicket. But then there were other times where, I understood the situation and what was required, and I really wanted to knuckle into the task at hand, and I felt my skills complemented what the task at hand was. Then my performance intelligence was up there, and I was able to suppress and control my emotions. So I guess it's trying to find that and help players find that they can make a difference.
Right. Also, when you were in the dressing room, have you seen the way great players prepare and the way good players prepare? Is there a difference? Like you must have seen a Sachin or a Virat Kohli from real close quarters, and then you have some really, really good players. But have you seen a difference? Did you learn a lot from that of how great players prepare?
Faisal, to be honest with you, I think professionals prepare the same way. Like, I think most professionals have got decent work ethic. They do what they need to do. Um, um, so no. So the answer is I don't see a huge difference. I do enjoy the more inquisitive player. But that's a personal preference. Not everyone has to be inquisitive. But I do enjoy a player that is engaging, asking questions, understanding his game better, learning a little bit more. But I also enjoy the players quite sure of himself. Shubman Gill, as an example, in the IPL that I've worked with over the last 3 years, he's got a real understanding of his own game and his own technique. Um, so it's good to have conversations with him around it, because I learned quite a bit around his game. So everyone's slightly different.
How do you rate him as a captain now that he's leading Team India?
Well, it's early days. I think he's got great potential. And captaincy is a whole lot of things that you've got to put together. He's a great thinker in the game. He's a good player himself. But there's a whole bunch of things you've got to get right. And I think man management is going to play, like any leader. Dhoni was an incredible man manager. So I think if you can get that component of his leadership really fired up, I think he has all the credentials to become a great captain for India.
Brilliant, brilliant. Gary, just before I let you go, just one final question, a light one. Just can you tell us one nice, interesting incident about your time with Team India that you've never shared before? Something nice, something happy that can, you know.
Well,
It could be funny too.
there were many. Yeah, there were many, but we had one really fantastic day out where we had a kind of a team bonding day where Paddy had organized each of the members to be part of a small group of about 5 or 6 people. So there were these teams of 5 or 6 people, and including the coaches, and we all had to make a 2-minute movie. And
Oh,
from the director, from the camera to the director to the actors, and we were told what movie we had to make. And I don't know, and those videos were actually produced. I'm hoping that they never got out into the public space. I don't think they ever did. But we ended up watching all those movies, and there were many things that I saw of the Indian players that I never knew or thought that's what their personality was like as they were acting out the particular things that they had to act. And that was one of the funniest days that I had with the Indian team, is watching those movies that each of us made, and seeing the behaviors of some of the individuals that I thought, jeepers, he is really a quiet guy. But when he acted that particular role, I saw a different side to him that I've never seen before. So that was a pretty cool day. And what it did do, it kind of it so there was no seniority there. It was basically you just basically like anyone else, you know. And I loved the fact that we could see an uninhibited senior player. I won't mention names, but that was pretty exciting.
That's great. On that funny note, Gary, thank you so much for your time. It's been amazing. It's been amazing. We'll see you soon. Thank you so much. Good luck.
Go well, Faisal. Cheers, man.